Hello everybody, this is Bitcoin Macro and this is the second video for today, guys. On this one, I'm going to talk about Neo, I'm going to talk about Zilliqa, I'm going to talk about Waves, I'm going to talk about RavenCoin, and I'm going to talk about Cosmos as well. So all these are coins I've made videos about, I've made ideas on TradingView as well. So of course I want to just give you guys an update on where are things going right now, because things have been going very well. And I just wanted to give you a nice update to just guide you a little bit based on the things that I'm seeing right now. So just yesterday I saw that chart on Zilliqa. I made this chart. I was like, look, Zilliqa is going to break out. It's happening. Okay, so it went from 370 satoshis up to about 430. So this might seem like nothing special, but the truth is it's slowly coming right above all the resistance level that have existed so far. Because when it comes to Zilliqa, guys, the first thing I see is we had this massive support and resistance block. So initially that was support, then once that broke, it became resistance. And we have seen this slow uptrend for quite some time. Okay, so of course, if you want to look at the USD chart, that's fine. But again, as you guys know, I usually look at the BTC charts because they give me a lot more information than the USD charts. So maybe I can take this resistance all the way up here. So potentially we can see that this hasn't really broken out, because we do still have that little bit right here, that bit where the big meltdown actually started. That was like when the red candles are becoming quite intense. Maybe somebody says it's all the way up there, but in my opinion, at some point, the resistance from up here won't really matter. So when it comes to Zilliqa, guys, of course, we have had this massive, incredible base. It had a similar situation like with Cardano, where it started pumping after having an incredible capitulation, incredible accumulation right here, and then it started going up very nicely. So once that happened, instead of coming all the way back down like Cardano, it started bottoming a little bit higher, and it was one great performer, and it even did very well when Bitcoin was doing well. So that was a little bit surprising earlier this year, and that's potentially why this coin hasn't pumped as much since the beginning of the year, because unlike other coins, it did not take a break, it didn't take a dive against Bitcoin, so it had already gone up substantially, and that's why, in my opinion, it took a break, because it had been doing well since the summer. It didn't really have the pullbacks other coins have had, so that's why it has been a little bit slower. So the main thing that I would be watching right now is, like, first of all, we have properly closed above this level. Now we have started closing above this level, like properly above it, not like just one time and then fail, one time and fail again. That's like a proper breakout. And the same thing holds for this one right here. So yes, potentially we might have a little pullback all the way down here before going higher, but in my opinion, the main thing has been done. Now, of course, it could pull back all the way down here. I'm not like a prophet, I don't have like a crystal ball or anything, but overall the trend is really still up. Okay, so we have a very clean trend, and in my opinion, we are slowly cleaning all the resistance levels. So once there is none left, and I do believe that this is one of the most important ones right here, that's probably the key level left, because that was where the big drop started. I do believe there's going to be more upside, because again, before that rally, guys, here on 2020, Zilliqa hadn't had that staking for it. So now that staking is also active, you can imagine that there is a lot less supply to be sold, because more people are staking, more people are using the Zilliqa to get Zilliqa. So that's a pretty big difference. And now this formation right here as well, that broke that massive wedge. Now it's been going up nicely. And one thing I had mentioned before is that Zilliqa, in my opinion, looked like theta just before the breakout. Okay, so if I look at this chart right here, it does kind of look a bit similar, not exactly similar, but both of them had that 2020 rally. They never truly came back all the way down, like in this occasion, for example. Cardano didn't have that extra rally like this one, so Theta had a rally in early 2020, then it had a rally in the second part of 2020 again, when everything else was dumping. It was holding up nicely. It also pumped before everything else. So Theta it was doing just its own thing, and that's why it was one of my greatest ideas back then, because it was just too obvious that eventually it would break higher. Now, of course, it could move higher from here, but in my opinion, that was the rally that captured most of the gains. So we are seeing something similar with ZILIQA, because we do keep seeing the same levels get tested. Now, the difference is that Theta has some, in my opinion, better fundamentals versus ZILIQA. It just has like that extra use case. I don't want to go too deep into that stuff, but of course it just has a little bit more different fundamentals. It just has something that differentiates itself from the rest of the projects. Plus, the key difference also was that Theta was going higher and higher slowly. It didn't have that overhead resistance like ZILIQA had. Now that ZILIQA is cleaning that overhead resistance, which was a similar thing with this level right here, in my opinion, it could go much higher. Okay, so of course this might not play this way. ZILIQA might not have the same explosive move up, but in my opinion, it's worth taking a little bit of risk. Of course, it's no investment advice. I'm just looking at this as a little bit of a fractal. So next one, guys, is NEO, which, you know, some people do actually know that in the past it was called AntShares, and it got rebranded. It's one of the big Chinese projects, okay, at least one of the most well-known Chinese projects. And right now NEO had also that full cycle. Okay, so it went all the way up there. It had that little double top and then all the way down. Look how big its capitulation actually was, and it came all the way back to where the really big rally started. So that was essentially the last key level before breaking higher. It almost go all the way back to the price it actually launched. Okay, pretty much that price. And that's crucial, guys. When these things happen and the project does have a bit of a substance, then big things can happen. So for NEO, guys, we have seen a proper reclaim of this support. I did mention that once this gets reclaimed for many times before, like in other videos, that you could have a pretty nice rally, even on some of the live streams I did a few months ago. So again, I had this idea where I mentioned, you know, this is the first target, then, you know, potentially this high could be the other target right here. So we did take a break right there. But of course, double tops don't exist, and because right now we're coming at this high again, I do believe we're gonna break higher. Plus, we are reclaiming this very important support. These levels here, maybe you could even see, could get even these ones in there. Okay, so once this breaks, maybe it does a little bit of a trap. Okay, and what I mean by this is we sweep the highs, then come down a little bit, then do this, and then, you know, maybe do something like that where it keeps on rallying. But in my opinion, it does look pretty good, and NEO does actually have the extra fundamental catalyst because N3 is coming. It will be a complete overhaul for the project. It's going to take a little bit of an approach like Ethereum, where some of the fees might be getting burned and stuff like that. At least it will just have a totally different approach in general. Now, there are some different dynamics between NEO and gas and all that stuff, which I would urge everyone to just study these things a little bit before you go into any of these projects. But of course, these are the two targets that I'm seeing right now very clearly. And of course, it would be quite a large pump if we get all the way up there, but I do believe it's not impossible. I do believe the Bitcoin dominance is going to go much lower for quite some time. And of course, this pattern is pretty bullish at the moment. I don't know if we're going to go into a bit of a reaccumulation right here, because again, guys, things have moved quite a bit. And every time we have seen things move so much, especially older coins, usually that results into a correction. So just be careful with your bets and what you're doing. And I'm just going to very briefly touch on gas. I'm not going to go too much into the fundamentals, but in my opinion, this is a pretty interesting chart right here. Because look at this, guys. So we have all this massive resistance. We have this support initially breaking down and being turned into resistance as well. Now this support was reclaimed with a massive pump. Then we've had this turn properly into support. It does look like Polkadot in a video that I mentioned. And when that happens, guys, when you have that massive accumulation range, it looks like a bit of a Wyckoff scheme. So we have this accumulation, then we have the breakdown, then we have a quick pump upwards. And you know, after that, we just close above the support, we chop above the support. But then the more this support gets tested, it's not the same as just a random support being tested like in this situation, for example, because we are sitting above proper support, because right here we do know that all the people that were selling here are probably rebuying the coins right now. And it does look ready to just explode. At least when something consolidates right here, we see a pretty nice reaccumulation because the pump was really hard. NEO has done much better than gas, and in my opinion, at some point gas is going to start keeping up with NEO, and it could have a fairly big explosion, because I did make a video, guys, on gas tokens, and I was talking about the differences, you know, why sometimes these tokens do better. We've seen VTHO token do better than, you know, the actual VET token. We also saw gas initially do better than NEO, so this might be the case once again. But of course, you know, NEO is the key one, is the main one. The upgrade is going to be on NEO, but it's going to affect gas massively as well. So just be aware of these things and bet accordingly, because again, the capitulation has been so massive. We are seeing a massive accumulation and reaccumulation right here, and I do believe things are looking very, very bullish. And it just reconfirms the bullish belief on NEO as well. So the other one, guys, is Waves. It's one that I mentioned on several videos. I've talked about this several times before. On this one, I don't really have that many bullish things to say because it did move quite a bit. Okay, so when I saw Waves, the stuff that I mentioned, at least briefly, I'm just going to mention them again, and I'm going to put the videos, all these videos, guys, on the description down below. What I saw right here, guys, was this. So that was its key bottom since 2017. That was pretty much when it launched on Bittrex. So it made another low, and then we made another low. So that was proper capitulation. This pump was a little bit random because they had that airdrop, that Vostok airdrop, and I don't even know what that token is doing right now. Like seriously, no idea. But again, Waves is one of those projects that has had lots of big news, lots of good stuff going for it. It was also one of those that kept pumping against Bitcoin since December 2019. It didn't really make a new low. Look at how nicely it has reclaimed every support level slowly. It formed a nice base right here. It did chop in this area. It did look a little bit like NEM, like SEM. It's one of those tokens that I've mentioned as well before, at least because I mentioned Symbol, the recent fork. And Waves was just lagging very, very hard. It just kept failing to make new highs all the time. But as it was creeping higher, it started becoming a little bit clearer that eventually it was going to break out and have a pretty big pump. But now, because it has come all the way back to this key area where it had that big breakdown, I don't want to tell you guys to go and buy it, because again, now that everything else is doing great, I do believe that if a token is not doing as great, then potentially that is telling us something. So I would just say avoid it for a little bit. Maybe if you hold some, you know, you could just think of selling some and then keeping some for the long term. But I do believe that it could potentially see a little pullback into these levels and go higher, because again, it had this nice support. This eventually became support again. Same thing for this level right here, which was also resistance in these ones. Same thing for this one, became support again and again. And Waves was also one of those that had a big pump along with Bitcoin, but eventually sort of capitulated and started dumping. So that was why I think that chart looked a little bit weird. It didn't really make as much sense. But again, it just came down to Waves doing much better than other coins initially. And then it just took its time to sort of recover and reaccumulate. But now, because we have come all the way back to this key resistance zone, I wouldn't want to say just go run and buy right now. In my opinion, it has pretty good fundamentals. It's one of the oldest ICOs that kept their money in Bitcoin, at least most of them. So I still assume they have tons of funds. They probably haven't even had to touch any of the waves reserves. I do believe they manage their money properly. And overall, it's one of those projects that keeps getting tons of development. They keep doing tons of things. So it definitely has a pretty big upside once it resolves this area right here. But I do believe we might have to see a little bit of reaccumulation here before it goes higher. Again, I'm not saying go short or anything like it, but in my opinion, it doesn't look as great as others, because if you consider this as just another of these pumps coming out of these little areas where it was just going sideways, then potentially you don't really think that's going to have big upside immediately. So next one, guys, is RavenCoin. It was one that I mentioned and it really didn't do very well. It did pretty poorly, and to be honest, I don't know how well it's going to do right now. Let me put on the Bittrex chart, because here I'm lacking some of the history. And the truth is that, you know, it did pretty well. It had that massive pump, and in my opinion, it did get a little affected by the Dogecoin pump, because it was just another animal coin. Of course, RavenCoin has quite a lot of strong fundamentals, at least based on what some people think. It has a strong community, a lot of people behind it. My trouble is a little bit its inflation, and overall that's a proof of work coin, where proof of work coins haven't done very well. And my opinion was that it was going sideways and it was going to break out very quickly, or at least fairly quickly, but it hasn't had all those extra listings or attention like Dogecoin. And because other coins start coming in, like Akita or Shiba Inu, or like all these random little things, I think that RavenCoin did take a bit of a backseat. Now this has turned into support. It has come all the way down to this key support area right here. Let me turn this into green so that it looks a little bit better as proper support. I always like to have green as support and red as resistance. So it is potentially going to go higher, but I just don't know how long it's going to take, and it might be one of those coins that don't perform well. But I do believe that once it starts breaking above these resistance zones and it starts breaking the diagonal as well, it's going to explode much higher. Okay, but the thing is, I don't know how high could it get. Potentially maybe all the way up to these previous highs, because if we just look at the old chart, it also had another high around this area, probably something like this, before it got listed on Bittrex. So it was one of the coins that was pretty cyclical. It just had pump, dump, and then had that extra nice pump over there, and then massive capitulation, incredible capitulation really. That was like, I don't know, 98% dip, or what? Yeah, almost 98% dip. So the capitulation has already occurred, and once it starts pumping, I do believe it could follow Dogecoin's trajectory. It did look a little bit, when I mentioned it, it was looking a little bit like Binance Coin and Dogecoin. So I thought it was going to be a little bit more bullish, but that didn't play out very well. So I apologize for you guys. I apologize to you guys, because I thought it was going to do a little bit better, but I still believe it has fairly strong fundamentals and it might do pretty well. But again, I'll be just a little bit more cautious. Same thing with waves. Okay, waves has already pumped, so I cannot tell you to just rush and buy at resistance, of course. So compared to, let's say, Neo or ZILIQA, I would prefer the first two to, let's say, these last two coins. And finally, guys, one that I mentioned a little bit more recently, I did mention it with other layer 1 protocols, but I do believe it because it's a little bit more special. It's not in that big league. I want to make a separate video for Atom, for Cosmos. And the thing is, like with this coin, guys, I do feel like this has been a really massive range that eventually will resolve to the upside, because what essentially happened since that coin was launched was it did have a bottom. That's the range low, that's the range top. Then it first took out the range top, and then it took out the range bottom. And now it's looking like it's having that nice round, not say bottom, but that nice round, you know, pattern where it looks like it wants to go higher. It doesn't seem like it has that much resistance above it or something to stop it. So I do feel like the upside here is pretty large, because once it starts breaking above those all-time highs, it could go much higher. And remember guys, Cosmos is one of those tokens that has that interoperability thing where it could do very well, because I do believe people will eventually realize that, you know, these blockchains need to be interconnected, and that will definitely affect the way people see this project. So if we look at the actual history, that history on CoinMarketCap or on CoinTrader Pro is actually not the real one, because these were like IOUs, but they do give you an idea of what was happening on OTC markets. But when Cosmos launched, I was like, for me to buy this first, I want to see an 80% dip versus Bitcoin. The dip was precisely 80%. Then it did go a little bit lower, at least from the actual launch date, because Binance did add Cosmos a little bit later, at least compared to, let's say, Kraken or Poloniex. But again, it just looks like a really massive base. If you just zoom out and you just look a little bit like this, like the dump was much bigger and then a massive sideways movement, then this could easily come all the way up here. At least that's my opinion, because it hasn't really had that massive pump yet. And it's a coin that when it launched, it already had tons of profits for its investors. It was one of the ICOs that happened early in 2017. At least as far as I remember, they raised only 17 million, but it took quite a while for them to release the project properly. So for the mainnet to be launched. So it took them about 2 years, whereas other projects launched a bit earlier. Of course, Filecoin launched a lot later as well. But, you know, it's just one of those projects that it has taken. It has a lot of things going for it. A lot of people like it. And maybe it is one of the hot things, because the more other layer 1 protocols rise, the more people will realize that, you know, interoperability will matter. So that's it from me guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope all the information was clear. I hope you like the stuff that I say, of course, because things are getting really hot. I didn't really get the chance to go much deeper on some of those coins and explain what each one does. But if I start doing these things, it's just going to get a bit messy. It's just going to get too much information. So I want to keep these videos under 30 minutes, and just, you know, 20 minutes I think are fine, at least when it comes to 5 coins, because I won't devote at least 3-4 minutes to each coin. I think that's more than enough, at least for you guys who might be a little bit more in a rush. You know, nobody has the time to watch tons of videos, because you might want to watch other videos, read other stuff, etc. So once again guys, thanks a lot for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. I say this all the time, but they really do help, all of them. They would help us grow if you like this content. It's bullshit free. I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I'm always honest, actually. I don't even try to be honest. I give you the best information. Whenever I see something hot, I try to give this to you early guys, rather than, let's say, see something pump and then talk about it. But then, you know, sometimes people just care about stuff after the pump, which is kind of sad. But for the people that come early and they research stuff early on, I'm happy for you guys. Hopefully more people will stop just chasing pumps and everything. So, you know, if you have anything you want to say, just leave a comment down below. Any coins you want me to check, I try to check most of them. Okay, so please follow me on Twitter, follow me on Telegram, give me a follow on TradingView as well. Twitter, Telegram and Twitter, these are the main places you can get quick updates from me. And that's it from me guys. See you on the next one.